The quiet life Marcus Thorne wiped grease from his calloused hands as he watched his adopted son, Zephyr, struggle with the plasma coupling beneath their half-built freighter. The boy's elongated fingers, so different from human hands, moved with an almost supernatural precision that Marcus had learned to hide from the other colonists of Rimworld Station. "Easy there, Zeph," Marcus called, his weathered face creased with concern. "Remember, the plasma conduits are pressure sensitive. One wrong move and we'll be picking metal shards out of the workshop walls." Zephyr's large, violet eyes looked up from beneath the hull, his pale blue skin slightly luminescent in the dim workshop light. At 12 years old, he was already showing signs of the genetic gifts that had made his people, the Vorthik, the most feared warriors in galactic history. But all Zephyr wanted was to build ships alongside his human father. "I can feel the energy patterns, Dad," Zephyr said, his voice carrying that strange harmonic quality that marked his alien heritage. "It's like ... like the ship is alive. I can sense where the power wants to flow." Marcus's chest tightened. He'd spent 8 years trying to suppress these abilities, teaching Zephyr to rely on tools and instruments like any human mechanic. Boy's natural connection to technology was both a blessing and a curse, a reminder of the engineered perfection that had made the Vorthik unstoppable in battle. "Use the scanner, son," Marcus said gently. "Trust the tools, not your instincts." But even as he spoke, Marcus knew it was futile. The boy's abilities were growing stronger each day, and soon he wouldn't be able to hide what Zephyr truly was. The galaxy believed the Vorthik were extinct, wiped out in the final battle of the Hegemony War 15 years ago. Marcus had been there, had seen the orbital bombardment that glassed their homeworld. He'd also seen the single escape pod that had contained an infant Vorthik, a baby, that now called him Dad. The workshop's proximity alarm chimed, and Marcus glanced at the security feed. 3 unmarked shuttles were approaching the station, their hulls bearing the black and gold insignia of the Terran Intelligence Bureau. His blood ran cold. "Zeph, come out of there. Now." Something in his father's tone made Zephyr immediately comply. The boy emerged from beneath the ship, his enhanced senses already picking up the tension radiating from Marcus. "What's wrong, Dad?" Marcus was already moving, pulling weapons from hidden compartments around the workshop. The old soldier's instincts, dormant for years, came flooding back. "Pack your gear. Emergency Protocol 7. Zephyr's eyes widened. They drilled this scenario dozens of times, but he'd never seen his father's hands shake before. "Dad, you're scaring me." "I'm sorry, son." Marcus shouldered his rifle and handed Zephyr a smaller weapon. "But I think our quiet life just ended." Through the workshop's reinforced windows, they could see the shuttles landing in the station's main bay. Armed figures in tactical gear were already disembarking, their movements efficient and purposeful. They weren't here for routine inspections. Hunt Begins Agent Caldwell stepped off the shuttle onto Rimworld Station's docking bay, her auburn hair pulled back in a severe bun that matched her expression. Behind her, a squad of Terran intelligence operatives fanned out with military precision, their weapons drawn but held low. The station's few inhabitants scattered like startled birds. "Target designation, Zephyr 7. She spoke into her comm unit. "Genetic markers confirm Vorthik DNA signature detected in this sector. Authorization code, Blackout Protocol." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Hayes, checked his scanner. "Ma'am, the readings are strongest from the maintenance sector." "Some kind of workshop?" Caldwell nodded grimly. 15 years of searching had finally paid off. The Vorthik were supposedly extinct, but intelligence suggested at least one had survived. If their information was correct, this survivor was being raised by a human former Alliance Marine, Marcus Thorne, who had gone missing after the war. "Remember," she addressed her team, "the Vorthik are engineered weapons. Even a child can be extremely dangerous if threatened. We're here to contain, not to harm unnecessarily. What she didn't tell them was that her orders came from the highest levels of government. The hegemony war had ended with humanity's victory, but it had been costly. The Vorthic's technological abilities had nearly broken the Alliance fleet. A living specimen could provide invaluable intelligence or become humanity's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, in the workshop, Marcus had activated the station's emergency lockdown. Blast doors sealed the maintenance sector, buying them precious minutes. Zephyr watched his father with growing alarm as the man he'd known as a gentle mechanic transformed into something harder, more dangerous. "Dad, why are they here?" Zephyr asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus paused in his preparations. The boy deserved the truth, even if it would shatter his world. "They're here because of what you are, Zeph. Because you're Vorthic." The word hit Zephyr like a physical blow. Every child in the galaxy knew that name, whispered in the same breath as monsters and nightmares. The Vorthic had been the hegemony's ultimate warriors, beings engineered for war who could interface with technology as easily as breathing. "But I'm not a monster," Zephyr protested, his eyes beginning to glow faintly, a sign of emotional distress that Marcus had learned to recognize. "No, son, you're not." "But they don't know that." Marcus knelt beside his adopted child, placing steady hands on the boy's shoulders. "Listen to me. I found you as a baby, the sole survivor of your people. I raised you to be kind, to be human, but your DNA, it marks you as something the galaxy fears." Outside, the sound of cutting torches echoed through the corridors. The blast doors wouldn't hold much longer. Marcus stood, shouldering his pack. "We're going to run, Zeph, far from here. And I'm going to keep you safe, no matter what. But our ship, leave it. We'll take the emergency shuttle." As they moved toward the hidden escape route Marcus had prepared years ago, Zephyr's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversation from beyond the doors. Words like specimen and containment and authorization to terminate if necessary. 4. The first time in his young life, Zephyr understood that his gentle nature might not be enough to survive in a galaxy that saw him as a weapon first and a child second. Powers awakening, the emergency shuttle Wanderer streaked through the asteroid field of the Kessler Belt. Its engines pushed dangerous limits. Marcus gripped the controls with white knuckles as plasma bolts lit up the space around them. 3. TIB pursuit craft had been hunting them for 6 hours, their superior speed slowly closing the gap. "Gad, the port engine is overheating," Zephyr called from the co-pilot's seat, his young face pale with exhaustion. "I know, son. Just hold on." But Marcus knew their stolen shuttle couldn't outrun military interceptors indefinitely. The old freighter was built for cargo, not combat. They needed a miracle, or they needed Zephyr to be something more than human. A proximity alarm screamed as another volley of plasma fire bracketed their ship. The blast wave threw them against their restraints, and Marcus felt the ship's systems beginning to fail. Warning lights painted the cockpit in hellish red. "Hull breach in the cargo bay," Marcus reported, his voice tight with control. "We're losing atmosphere." That's when something extraordinary happened. Zephyr's eyes began to glow with that ethereal violet light, and his elongated fingers moved across the control panel with inhuman speed. But he wasn't touching the controls. He was somehow interfacing with the ship's systems directly. "Zeph, what are you doing?" "I can feel the ship's pain," the boy said, his voice taking on that harmonic quality that marked his alien heritage. "The electrons are screaming. I can ... I can guide them." The damaged shuttle suddenly performed a maneuver that should have been impossible. It spun through a gap between asteroids that was barely wider than its hull, the ship responding to Zephyr's mental commands rather than physical input. The pursuing craft, built for straightforward pursuit, couldn't match the supernatural precision. Marcus watched in amazement and growing fear as his adopted son became something beyond human understanding. The boy's consciousness seemed to merge with the ship's systems, turning the battered freighter into an extension of his will. "I can see the energy patterns," Zephyr whispered, his voice distant. "The fusion reactor wants to sing in harmony. The plasma conduits are rivers of light." One of the pursuit craft made the mistake of firing directly at them. Zephyr's enhanced reflexes kicked in, and he somehow redirected the ship's power grid to create an electromagnetic pulse that fried the attacker's systems. The military vessel tumbled away, dead in space. "Zeph!" Marcus grabbed his son's shoulder, feeling the boy's skin burning with fever. "Come back to me." The violet glow faded from Zephyr's eyes, and he slumped forward in his seat. The supernatural control over the ship vanished, leaving them with just a damaged freighter and one remaining. Pursuer. "Dad, I'm sorry," Zephyr whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't mean to ... so angry. They want to hurt you because of me." Marcus pulled the boy into his arms, feeling the tremor in his small frame. "It's okay, son. You saved." "U.S." But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew their world had changed forever. The gentle child he'd raised was gone, replaced by something that could interface with technology in ways that defied human understanding. This was what the galaxy feared, not just the Vorthic's strength, but their ability to turn any machine into a weapon. "I don't want to be a monster," Zephyr sobbed against his father's chest. "You're not a monster," Marcus said firmly. "You're my son, and we're going to find a way to keep you safe." But as he held the boy, Marcus wondered if safety was even possible. The galaxy had tried to exterminate the Vorthic for a reason, and now he understood why. In the right hands, Zephyr's abilities could reshape the balance of power across the stars. The question was, whose hands would ultimately claim him? The father's choice to planet Selim Prime had once been a garden world, its cities gleaming monuments. To human achievement, now it was a battlefield. Marcus crouched behind the twisted wreckage of a hovercar, his rifle aimed at the hegemony forces advancing through the smoke-filled streets. Beside him, Zephyr huddled in terror, his violet eyes wide with shock. "I thought the hegemony was defeated," the boy whispered. "So did I," Marcus replied grimly. "But apparently someone's been rebuilding." The truth was more complex than either of them knew. The hegemony remnants had been waiting, hidden in the outer rim, for exactly this moment. When news of a surviving Vorthic had leaked from Tib Communications, they'd launched a desperate gambit. If they could capture Zephyr, they might have a chance to reverse their losses. General Krovek, the hegemony's most ruthless commander, had personally led the assault on Selim Prime. He'd been there during the original war, had seen what the Vorthic could do when properly motivated. A child would be easier to control than the adult warriors who had ultimately turned against their creators. "Marcus Thorne," Kravek's voice echoed through the ruins, amplified by his suit's speakers. "Former Alliance Marine, service number 7749 Delta. You're harboring a weapon of mass destruction." Marcus didn't respond, but his grip tightened on his rifle. Around them, the battle raged between Tib forces trying to extract Zephyr and hegemony. Troops trying to capture him. The boy they all wanted was caught in the crossfire, and Marcus was the only thing standing between him and a fate worse than death. "Dad, I can help," Zephyr said, his hands beginning to glow with that familiar violet. "Light, I can make their weapons stop working." "No," Marcus's voice was firm. "The moment you use your abilities, you become what they say you are. You become a weapon. But they're trying to kill you because of me." A plasma bolt sizzled past Marcus's head, close enough to singe his hair. He returned fire, dropping a hegemony. Soldier who had gotten too close. "That's my choice to make, son. I won't let you become a monster to save me." The words cut deep, but Marcus meant them. He'd spent 8 years raising Zephyr to be more than his genetics, to choose compassion over conflict. If the boy gave in to his engineered nature now, everything they'd built together would be lost. "I have a proposition," Kravek's voice continued. "Give us the boy, and we'll guarantee your safety. He'll be well treated, educated, given a purpose worthy of his abilities." Marcus laughed bitterly. He'd seen what the hegemony considered purpose. They would turn Zephyr into a living weapon, a technological savant who could cripple entire fleets with a thought. The boy's gentle nature would be crushed under the weight of engineered aggression. "Never," Marcus called back. "Then you'll both die for nothing." That's when the orbital bombardment began. The hegemony had grown tired of the standoff, decided to level the entire district. Energy beams lanced down from their battle cruiser, turning buildings to vapor and melting stone into glass dot as the world exploded around them. Marcus made a choice that would haunt him forever. He grabbed Zephyr and ran, not away from the battle, but toward it. If they were going to die, it would be on his terms. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Something I should have done years ago," Marcus replied, his voice filled with grim determination. "I'm going to teach you that being human isn't about your DNA, it's about your choices." Together, they charged into the inferno, a human father and his alien son, united against a galaxy that wanted to define them both. The choice of legacy, the command center of the hegemony battleship Dominion, shuddered under the impact of Alliance artillery. General Kravek stood before the tactical display, his scarred face twisted with frustration. After hours of bombardment, the human and his Vorthic charge had not only survived, but had somehow made it aboard his flagship. "How is this possible?" Kravek demanded of his aide, Commander Torsk. "Sir, the boy appears to be interfacing with our systems. He's turned our own security grid against us." On the screens around them, they could see Marcus and Zephyr moving through the ship's corridors with impossible efficiency. The boy's hands glowed with violet energy as he touched access panels, doors opening before them and sealing behind them. But what disturbed Kravek most was that the child seemed to be crying as he did it. "He's not embracing his nature," Kravek muttered. "He's being forced to use it." In the corridor below, Marcus kept one hand on Zephyr's shoulder as they moved deeper into the ship. The boy's abilities were keeping them alive, but each use of his power seemed to tear something away from his humanity. "I can feel their thoughts through the ship's network," Zephyr whispered, his voice strained. "The crew. They're terrified of me. Even the ones who've never seen a Vorthic know what I am." "That's not what you are," Marcus said firmly. "That's what they made your people into. You're choosing to be different." They reached the ship's main reactor chamber, where Kravek had set his trap. The general waited with 24 elite guards, their weapons trained on the entrance. "Surrender the boy, Thorn?" Kravek called out. "You fought well, but this ends now." Marcus stepped into the chamber, his rifle raised. Behind him, Zephyr's eyes blazed with power that could cripple the entire ship. For a moment, father and son stood at the crossroads of destiny. "You know what he is," Kravek continued. "The Vorthic were created to be perfect warriors. Fighting us is like fighting gravity inevitable and futile. Let him embrace his true nature." "My true nature," Zephyr said, his young voice carrying across the chamber, "is to choose." The boy stepped forward, his hands glowing brighter than they ever had before. Every weapon in the room began to spark and smoke as he overloaded their power cells. The guards staggered back, their equipment failing. But instead of pressing his advantage, Zephyr did something unprecedented. He reached out through the ships, networked and sent a message to every crew member simultaneously. Images of his life with Marcus, memories of building ships and sharing quiet moments, proof that even a Vorthic could choose peace. I am the last of my people, Zephyr's voice echoed through the ship's intercom. But I am not their legacy. I choose to be human, not in body, but in spirit. I choose to build instead of destroy. The effect was immediate. Across the ship, weapons powered down. Crew members looked at each other with new understanding. The boy they'd been taught to fear was offering them something the galaxy had never seen. Vorthik, who chose mercy. Kravik raised his sidearm, desperate to salvage his mission. But Marcus was faster, his shot taking the general down before he could fire. As the hegemony forces surrendered, Marcus pulled Zephyr into his arms. The boy was exhausted, his alien abilities drained, but his eyes held a peace that had been absent for days. Did I do the right thing, Dad? Marcus looked around at the surrendering. Soldiers, at the ship that had been spared destruction, at the son who had chosen compassion over vengeance. You did something better than right, Zeph. You chose to be yourself. Later, as Alliance forces took control of the hegemony ship, Admiral Torres approached Marcus with an offer. We could use someone like your son. His abilities are his to choose how to use, Marcus interrupted. He's not a weapon. He's a boy who wants to build starships. Torres nodded slowly, understanding. And if he chooses to help us? Marcus looked at Zephyr, who was already examining the ship's damaged systems with his unique perspective. Then it will be his choice to make. In the end, that was what mattered most. In a galaxy that wanted to define them both, a human father and his alien son had chosen to define themselves. The war was over, but their story, and their choice to be more than what genetics demanded, would echo across the stars for generations to come. The alien boy had wanted to be like his human dad. In the end, he had become something even better himself.